Oh, hi, everybody. It's Ezra Levant here, August 31st. Can you believe it? It's almost September, half a year wasted on this pandemic. I regret it won't just be half a year wasted on it. It will most certainly be another year. Because too many people are enjoying the pandemic panic and what they've been able to seize. You know, there's that old proverb, when two argue, a third grabs the hat. Have you ever heard that one? Probably sounds better in Yiddish. And while, oh my God, am I in danger? Should I social distance? Should I wear a mask? Should I go to work? While we're all being distracted, a third grabs the hat. Parliaments around the world dissolved or prorogued, including here in Canada. Elections outright cancelled in New Zealand. I think they had 6 people in the hospital in the whole country. Martial law in the state of Victoria, Australia. More deficit spending in a month in Canada than used to be done in a year. Massive spending programs, massive power grabs, diminutions of our civil liberties that would be unthinkable months ago. Very depressing. I just got an email from someone that they sought a doctor's note for their child who had a breathing issue before getting on a plane. And the doctor, rather than respecting the doctor-patient relationship, said they were worried about the College of Physicians and Surgeons because any doctors that give a note will be bullied. I absolutely believe that. Look at the bullying that has happened to Dr. Kulvinder Kaur, who is an expert. Not only is she a doctor, she actually studied, I understand, at Winnipeg's level 4 virology institute. Like, she probably knows more about viruses than 99% of doctors in Canada. She was the toast of the town when she would, criticize Rob Ford about medical policies 1, 2, and 3. But because she is not a panic merchant, she has been demonized in the media, and there have been ethics complaints filed against her to the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and I don't necessarily think she's going to win, because there's nothing more political than the political doctors who run the College of Physicians and Surgeons. It's quite like the benchers at a law society. They're the most political of the lawyers. It was interesting to me, Kulvinder Kaur, I follow her on Twitter. She's a real fighter. We tried to get an interview with her, but I think she's shy. Here's just some tweets from her. What public hydroxychloroquine discourse should ultimately be about is the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, which had been protected from state interference violation for centuries in order to protect the interests of patient safety and care. What is happening now is a dangerous precedent. Here's another one. Mass testing of asymptomatic individuals is likely to produce large numbers of false positives, either from the inherent limitations of the test or from past infections. Mass testing has big drawbacks for individuals without adding useful information for the community. Now, she is demonized in our country, but she was treated with great respect on Australian TV the other day. Sky News down there, which interviewed her as she is, a medical doctor with a real expertise and interest in these things. And I think she actually, besides, I heard from someone who knows her that she studied at the Winnipeg Virology Lab. And I also, if I recall, she did some studies in India. Kerala, I think, is the place, where they really know hydroxychloroquine because they use it for malaria. So I think she, more than most doctors, I mean, I'm not saying that I would say a doctor with a different opinion can't have a different opinion. But that's the whole point about doctors and opinions. That's that phrase, I'd like a second opinion, because another doctor might say, well, I see something different, or I have a better idea, or you don't want to try that, or I've had experience with this. Here's a quick clip of her. Do we have that clip of her on Sky TV? Just, you know, it's so funny here in Canada. She's literally being hounded by Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster and complains to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. It's the opposite. It's roll out the red carpet for her in Australia. Take a look at this.
Now tell us your main concern. You have spoken out about, you've spoken about hydroxychloroquine. You've spoken more importantly, and we're going to discuss this here today, about the importance of the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship and why historically it is so important. So explain this to us, Dr. Gill.
Absolutely. So following the atrocities of the World War II, where doctors had actually been forced to commit crimes against humanity, countries had gathered and they signed the Declaration of Geneva, and that was in 1948. And the purpose of that declaration was to then form the International Code of Medical Ethics, which demanded that physicians practice their profession with conscience. And it was to ensure the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship from any future intrusion by government, any future violation or coercion, or any sort of manipulation by governments or its bureaucrats in the practice of the actual profession. And now in 2020, we see a very dangerous and unprecedented violation of that very doctor-patient relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, look at her. She's very articulate. She's very telegenic. She happens to be a woman of color, which in normal times she would be a rock star in the media. She's got opinions, she can back it up, she's got the scholarly credentials, but because she dares to dissent, she must be destroyed. It's quite something. And I just got, literally while we were watching that clip, I got an email back from this mum who got a lecture from her doctor. Her doctor does not want to give her son a bona fide exemption because she's worried. I'm not going to say who this mom is, but I literally got a note back while we were watching that clip. Here's her opinion. Essentially, doctors following government dictates, like Nazi Germany, not based on science or facts about the COVID scam, and not focusing on patients' own health, but rather the greater good, which my idiotic doctor mentioned. Why we get another doctor, but you know how crappy our socialized medical care is in Ontario. Impossible to find another family doctor. Lots of strong comments in there. It's just a personal note to me. I'm not going to say who that person is. But if you say to your doctor, hey doctor, can you give me a prescription for this legitimate thing? Can you give me hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and zinc? That's sort of the combination that people say works. Okay, your doctor can say yes or no, or here's why it works for you, or here's why I wouldn't, or here's the risks. I mean, but all of those meds have been prescribed for decades. The risks are well known and are modest. But, so your doctor could say, well, here's why that's wrong for you, or here's why that's right for you. I'm treating you as a patient. But for the doctor to say, the mom just wrote back to me and said, you can use my name. I might. So not the doctor, that mom wrote back to me and said, you can use my name. For that mom to say that the doctor said to her, for the public good, I'm not going to give you a prescription. For the public good, I'm not going to let your son who has breathing issues get an exemption. Hang on. Are you my doctor, or are you a little politician now? Or are you a doctor who's just scared of being bullied by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, which is, I think, the most likely answer. I'm going to show it tonight on my paywalled show, but I'd like to show you, because I thought it was such a good video, a huge protest in Berlin, Germany. Huge, huge, huge. I was looking, and the mainstream media pegged the number at 40,000. So if it's a right-wing or dissenting protest, the media is going to cut the number in half. If it's a left-wing protest, the media is going to double the number. So if the media says this protest had 40,000 people, you can take it to the bank that there were more. Without further ado, let me show you a video that we were delighted to work with a freelancer out there who did a heck of a job. And there's a surprise speaker in Berlin, Germany. I was not expecting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Here, watch. How long's the whole video altogether? 8 minutes. You know what? Let's see how much of the 8-minute video we can play before it feels tiresome. I didn't find it tiresome at all. It's so well done. It's very interesting. And it's a window on the other side of the world. Take a look at this.
In the heart of the city of Berlin, thousands of people are gathering today peacefully to send a signal to the German government against the COVID-19 restrictions, which are on many people's view way too extreme, not necessary, and violates fundamental human rights and dismantle democracy. The organization behind it, called Querdenken, translated as critical thinking, highlighted very specifically on their website this week that this should be the most peaceful demonstration ever, and that all participants should be respecting the guidelines set out by the city council. The mayor of Berlin, Michael Müller, member of the Social Democrats, responded in a talk show earlier this week. It annoys me beyond measure. They're traveling from Frankfurt, Stuttgart to Berlin and make riots in our city. They don't know what the facts are and therefore risking the health of other people. Senator for the Interior Andreas Geisel declared on Wednesday on the mainstream news, "I am not prepared to accept that Berlin is misused as a stage for COVID-19 deniers and right-wing extremists."
We are peaceful people, right? From the beginning, there was never a violent anything. It's all in the media. You know, there's like many thousands of people coming peacefully together, and it's a great feel of heart. Like it's really a peaceful demonstration.
So what is your point today?
What media is lying to us, what politicians lying to us.
For example,
We start with Corona. There's like a pandemic situation which is not happening. There's not much of a mortality rate in the world. Like I don't know in other countries, but in Europe, in Germany especially, we have just normal death rate. There's no overall death.
initially the city council banned the demonstration. To make it even more confusing, the anti-protests against the COVID-19 protests were allowed. Why are you standing here today?
I'm standing here because I can't allow that Nazis and fascists are marching together with these weird, crazy people from QAnon here in Berlin. And they are here in the thousands, and I just cannot allow this to happen without protesting against it.
Well, why do you think they're Nazis?
Well, it's quite obvious, like all the really right-wing, right extremist fascist groups have mobilized today here, so like huge parts of the group of the demonstrations are just against the coronavirus, like what Merkel did and everything, but like a lot of right-wing groups mobilized here today, and they're very obviously right-wing and right extremist groups and fascists, so they're here, like you can see it, you see their shirts, you see their tattoos.
What's the solution?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, people can believe in all kinds of stupid shit, but they should not march together with Nazis, so I think that's the bottom line.
Bleiben Sie hier, bleiben Sie ruhig, er sind 5 Minuten wieder hier.
It seems to me that the police is taking a little bit of a demonstration of power to the people.
Currently the police stopped the people and locked down all the streets because people didn't maintain that 1.5 meter distance, and all these people are kind of stuck and waiting for the next step.
De hoogste rechter in Berlijn heeft toegelaten dat de demonstratie weer wordt geopend. Dat er mensen worden doorgelaten, maar de politie die is daar tegen en die heeft nu aan de leiding van de demonstratie gezegd: wij gaan dit politiematig, gaan we de demonstratie beëindigen en uit elkaar drijven.
Ja, we zien geen andere mogelijkheid.
Nee, dus je ziet nu een conflict tussen de rechterlijke macht en de politie in Berlijn.
So the march has been officially banned and people walking, on their own to the Siegessäule where the official demo will take place. this behavior of the city council is exactly the reason why the people are going to the streets. You're allowed to demonstrate, but not against government rules in a crisis as such. And that's the question, whether it's still a crisis or did it have become a political tool?
Ihr steht heute hier, weil ihr nicht mehr wollt, dass euch jemand sagt, wie ihr zu leben und zu denken habt. Und ich stehe hier mit dem Grundgesetz, das uns seit mehr als 70 Jahren die Grundrechte garantiert. Es ist das Beste, was uns bisher passiert ist, aber konnte uns im Jahr 2020 nicht davor beschützen, dass die Regierung sich immer weiter selbst ermächtigt.
They're going to report that yes, I was here and that I spoke to maybe 3,000 to 5,000 Nazis. I see people of every color. I see people from every nation, every religion, all caring about human dignity, about children's health, about political freedom. This is the opposite of Nazism. Governments love pandemics. They love pandemics for the same reason they love war, because it gives them the ability to impose controls on the population that the population would otherwise never accept. You can do this in a Nazi regime, you can do it in a socialist regime, you can do it in a communist regime, you can do it in a monarchy and a democracy. The only thing a government needs to make people into slaves is fear. 50 years ago, my uncle John Kennedy came to this city because Berlin was the front line against global totalitarianism. And today again, Berlin is the front line against global totalitarianism. He proudly said to the people of Germany, "Ich bin ein Berliner." All of us who are here today can proudly say once again, "Ich bin ein Berliner."
It had long since to be about criticism of the decisions had to be made during the pandemic time. But it's much more about the public's voice guarding the thin line between governments caring for its people or wanted to control them. My name is Marijn Poels, on freelance assignment for Rebel News, Berlin.
Wasn't that an interesting report? And Marijn Poels did such a good job, wouldn't you say? I thought he was very balanced, very professional. It was fascinating, and I was not expecting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there. I actually, believe it or not, met RFK Jr. once before when he was in my home province of Alberta, because he's the head of some water keepers eco group, and he had some fancy celebrity party at a ski hill. And I went there and I actually interviewed the celebrities as they came down and asked them questions. I really enjoyed it. I was using the red carpet style. Oh, how are you? What film are you in? And then I would ask them a political question or two. It went wonderfully. I was asking about what would you prefer, ethical oil from Canada or conflict oil from OPEC? It was a wonderful conversation I had with so many celebs. So that was my only other life experience with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I always took him to be a bit of a lefty, and indeed he is a lefty. And did you hear what he said? He said, you know, they're going to say I spoke to a few thousand Nazis. It's obviously not true. I see people of every background. And it was very interesting. He said that the pandemic, like a war, is an excuse to take power, and it can happen left-wing, right-wing, democracy, monarchy. My esteem for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has risen because he is still a liberal, but of the true definition of that word, liberalism, believes in personal liberty and freedom and civil rights. It's different from a leftist who enjoys the pandemic and the panic and the ability it has to turn public fear into authoritarianism. So I don't think RFK Jr. has changed. I think that governments, and Angela Merkel is certainly no right-winger. I don't even know what that word means in Germany anymore. She's authoritarian. So what an interesting sight to see RFK speak against her and to speak for the people there and to vindicate them and say, I see people of every race. Is that one woman saying, oh, there's Nazis here. And Marine saying, do you have any proof? Do you have any evidence? Oh, they're just Nazis. Oh, they're just Nazis. Oh, they're really Nazi. I just know it. No, I don't think so. I don't think you met the burden of proof for that defamation. You know, last year I saw this little speech from Angela Merkel, and this was before the pandemic had really broken. Did you get that clip I sent you? It's a short clip. It's only about a minute long. And it's in German, but it's got the captions there, the subtitles. You got to watch this. Look at Angela Merkel giving the game away. Take a look at this.
Und all die, die dauernd behaupten, sie dürfen nicht mehr ihre Meinung sagen, denen muss sie einfach sagen, wer seine Meinung sagt. Und wenn sie prononciert ist, der muss damit leben, dass es Widerspruch gibt. Es gibt keine Meinungsfreiheit zum Nulltarif, dass alle zustimmen. Aber die Meinungsfreiheit kennt Grenzen. Und die beginnen da, wo gehetzt wird, da, wo Hass verbreitet wird. Die beginnen da, wo die Würde anderer Menschen verletzt wird. Und dagegen werden und müssen wir uns stellen in diesem Hause. Und das werden wir auch hinbekommen, meine Damen und Herren. Denn sonst ist diese Gesellschaft nicht mehr das, was sie glauben.
Did you follow that, Pretzel? We've got to limit your freedom of speech. Otherwise, society will not be free. Pardon me? Yeah. Hey guys, I've thought about it and I've concluded that in order for society to be free, we've got to limit your freedom of speech. What's not to get? So that's the Chancellor of Germany. I'll never get over the fact that Angela Merkel, her father, chose to move from West Germany to East Germany during the Cold War. What? That would be like choosing to move from New York City to Moscow in like 1965. Why would you do that? Unless you, I mean, I know a lot of leftists in America said, woo, socialism, communism, but they didn't actually want to live in an authoritarian, totalitarian regime. No one moved from America to Moscow. But Angela Merkel's family chose to move from West Germany to East Germany. East Germany, and the Soviets who dominated East Germany, literally built a wall of concrete and barbed wire and machine guns called the Berlin Wall because the city of Berlin was split. The eastern part was controlled by the Soviets and the west by the three Western powers that helped liberate Germany. And so they split the city and they built a wall down the middle. But the wall was actually built by the Soviets to keep people in, as you know. So the Berlin Wall wasn't about keeping people out, it was about keeping Germans in. And any German who would try to leave Germany was killed, shot at, not by the West, but by the Soviets, or the Soviet-dominated East German Communist Party. Imagine you have to build a barbed wire and concrete fence with guards and machine guns to keep people in a prison called East Germany. And Angela Merkel's family said, we want to go in there and live there. So yeah, that's Angela Merkel for you. Let me get back to the Super Chats because I don't think I properly introduced that. Most of you, I think, know what we do. Every day at 12 noon, we have a live show. It's less scripted than the show I do every day at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we do dribs and drabs and thises and that's. And we also follow what you, our viewers, say. And the best way to do that is what we call a super chat. Actually, we didn't invent that strange word, super chat. That's what Google calls it. When you make your comments escalated by chipping in a few dollars, so it makes it bright color and it sticks to the top of the chat window. But also YouTube shares 70% of their revenue with us, so it's an important replacement for the ads they've banned on our site. So I see there's a bunch of super chats getting going. Let me jump right in. So please do support us with super chats if you can, because we've got over 20 staff here working hard to give you the news every day. And we just, my friend Sheila has interviewed Marin. I don't think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and I apologize. I'm going to hopefully chat with him later today, and I'll get his pronunciation proper. But I thought he did a great job, and I hope we can work with him on future things too. Okay, let's read some super chats. Hazel Hogan, £5. Thank you, Hazel. I note that in the United Kingdom over the weekend, there was a protest similar to that in Germany, and it was headlined by no one less than Jeremy Corbyn's brother, Piers Corbyn, who's rather opposite his brother in some ways. I guess they're both dissidents in some form, but Piers Corbyn has been a climate skeptic for many years. And so it's not surprising that he's also a skeptic of the pandemic panic. So he headlined a protest against the pandemic panic in Trafalgar Square, one of my favorite places in London. And apparently he was given a £10,000 fine, which if my memory is correct is like 17,000 Canadian dollars. Enormous fine. I haven't heard of any fines being given to any Antifa rioters or Black Lives Matter protesters in the UK, but for someone who dares to object to the pandemic, £10,000 fine for him. And yet, another layer of irony is that unlike those other protests and riots, nothing's destroyed. Obviously, he didn't deface or destroy the Churchill statue. He was there to talk science. Wendy Jackson, $5. Look into people in Regina shoe store testing negative but forced into quarantine at Ramada. Scary. Wendy, I have not heard of that story, but if you want to send me a link or something, because I just haven't heard that before. Great Informer, $5. Justin Trudeau believes the Dukes of Hazzard is a royal family from England. Those are funny ones. Ferris Bueller, $5. COVID deniers, like climate deniers. Here we go. Anyone who questions the science is now a denier and likely a racist on top of it. Oh, that's the language. I mean, that's the language that in Canada the Liberal Party has used for years for anyone on climate. So of course they're going to just import that language for their. I mean, in many ways, as Mark Morano explained to us last week, this pandemic is far more powerful than global warming because people are actually afraid of it. No one actually lives like they're afraid of global warming. No one does. But a lot of people are living as if they truly fear this virus. So that's a great way to take advantage of them, as RFK Jr. said. Marcus Starr, $4. What about the rally in Ottawa? We had a reporter there, and we heard from her today that it was quite well attended, so we expect to have that footage today and hopefully have the video up tonight, probably? Yeah, Justin says it should be this afternoon. We're editing it right now. Michael Hanna, $5. Do store owners have the right to deny service customers who claim a mask exemption? What is the legal recourse if it is not specified in the bylaw? Well, that's a great question. And let me answer by analogy. If someone has a wheelchair, are they allowed in a store? Can the store say no one with a wheelchair is allowed in the store? Well, the answer is that's discrimination based on a protected characteristic or condition. In the case of a wheelchair, disability. Okay, now is there an exemption to the exemption? Can a store reasonably accommodate that person's condition? So if you're in the roller coaster business, actually maybe you could sort of put someone from a wheelchair in a roller coaster. But I could imagine that might be an example where someone says it's discrimination, sure, but it's not reasonably accommodated. We just can't put you in a roller coaster. Although now that I'm saying it, maybe it is very possible to put someone in a wheelchair in a roller coaster, so it's not a perfect analogy. So back to the stores. If you have an exemption under a protected ground, like disability, you have a respiratory issue. I saw a photograph of a lady who has a tracheotomy or something. Is that what they call it? Where you have a little hole there and you breathe out of that. It's probably from throat cancer or something. I think that's what that's from. Cancer of the larynx, I think. I'm sorry, I don't know my medical terms. But I saw a lady who has one of those holes to breathe through right there. And she was denied entrance to a bingo hall, I believe. There we go. Ontario woman kicked out of bingo hall for not using mask to cover breathing hole in her neck. That's sort of a terrifying story. An Ontario woman battling lung cancer who breathes through a hole in her neck was kicked out of her local bingo hall because her breathing hole wasn't covered with a mask, her son says. Whippy Ontario woman Elaine Arbeau doesn't go out much anymore, her son says, unless it's to play at a casino or bingo hall with her friends. According to her son, the 67-year-old was excited to see her friends again when Delta Bingo in Pickering, Ontario reopened following the COVID-19 shutdown. But things didn't go as planned. When she arrived earlier this month, she got inside. Management asked her to leave. I won't read the whole story, but to scroll up a little bit, I can tell you right now, having read every mask bylaw in Canada, there is no mask bylaw in Canada that says you have to cover a hole in your neck. I've simply read them all, and they say nose, mouth, and chin. So first of all, this bingo hall was making up a ban. They were making it up. Second of all, even if, and I know there's probably a better term than a hole in her neck, but forgive me, I don't know a technical term. Tracheotomy, is that tracheotomy or something? I'm sorry, I don't know what it, yeah. So even if there was a rule, that is, which there's not, you have to cover your neck. This woman is clearly exempt from medical. You can't put a mask over that. Sorry, I don't mean, listen, I'm not the ones who made this a news story, the bingo hall did. So this is clearly covered by a medical exemption. And so the bingo hall is actually the one that is breaking the mask bylaw, because the exemption is an integral part of the bylaw. The bylaw says you must do these things, and here are the exemptions. Most mask bylaws exempt people under a certain age, under 2 years old, under 5 years old. Most exempt people who are unconscious. Most exempt people who cannot put on or take off their mask. I'm just telling you, I've read every mask bylaw in their country, which you can read too at maskexemption.ca. Every single mask bylaw in Canada is at maskexemption.ca. That'll save you a lot of time if you yourself want to read every mask bylaw in the country. And we update that pretty much every week. And it also includes the mask rules for airports and airplanes. So this woman presents to the bingo hall, and they say, put a mask on that. First of all, they have no authority to ask for that. It's not in the law. Second of all, even if there was something in the law saying cover your neck, which there's not, she has a medical exemption. And the medical exemption is not a loophole. It's not a asterisk or a footnote. It is just as much a part of the law as any other part of the law. And there are different bylaws around the country, but generally, it would be like telling someone in a wheelchair, you can't come into the restaurant because you're in a wheelchair. Well, under various laws, including in Ontario, the Ontario Human Rights Act, that's illegal discrimination based on a protected grounds. So this woman could, for example, go to the Ontario Human Rights Commission and file a human rights complaint. There may be other complaints she can file too, including in civil court. But they are breaking the law. They're breaking the mask bylaw, and they're breaking the Ontario Human Rights Act. Part of me has sympathy for the bingo hall because suddenly this new law is invented, and normal people who are not lawyers or bureaucrats or police are being told they have to be the enforcers of this law with no training, with no background. I mean, I told you the story the other month when I go into a Starbucks, there's a couple of teenagers working behind the counter. I'm going to get into some legal debate with some teenagers. I just want to get a drink. It really pits customers against shopkeepers, which is terrible. And it brings out the authoritarian in people I don't even think the bingo hall wants to kick this lady out. They're either trying to do their best to follow the law, they're breaking the law, or they're afraid of being shut down by some health inspector, or it's like I mentioned earlier, a doctor doesn't want to issue a mask exemption because the doctor is afraid of being punished like Dr. Kulvinder Kaur is. So there's a whole bunch of problems there. Anyway, I don't know if I've properly answered that question for you, but there you have it. Where were we? Lisa Proust, $5. Ezra, I filmed Ottawa on Saturday and have footage in my feed. We'll cover Montreal on September 12th. Hired a professional camera like you. I am tired of MSM lies. I saw your Twitter tweets over the weekend, and congratulations for becoming a citizen journalist who's traveling around telling the truth. That's great. Muzzle Flash, $5. I think that's Australian. Esther, how do you feel about people being forced to wear a homemade rag mask on their face that has many germs as a 5-day-old dishcloth? Well, you're so right. And in my show tonight, I'm going to go through Catherine Birbal-Singh's warnings about, she's a headmistress of a very successful school in the United Kingdom that really focuses on discipline problems. And she's strict, but in a positive way. She sets up systems. She says, look, you have to take kids for how they are, rambunctious, rowdy, troublemaking, rebellious. You have to give them systems and rules. And you throw masks in there, people are going to take them from each other, spit in them, throw them in the garbage. There'll be horrific things done with masks. There'll be a source of bullying. There's a source of distractions and games. She says, why are you doing it? And there's no medical science behind it. Yeah, and more I see that. People just wearing it under their chin, so I'm wearing it. I mean, I think people are going to snap over this, but it's also bringing out the worst in other people who say, I hate this mask, it's really stupid, but I'm doing it because I'm compliant. And you over there, it's just as stupid as I do, but you're not being compliant, so I'm mad at you, because if I have to be compliant, so do you. So I'm going to snitch on you or get mad at you, but I'm really mad at myself because I'm mad at the situation that I'm in. That's what it is. No one believes these masks. You know what? I saw a Facebook meme a few months ago, and I can't get it out of my head, and it's a little gross, but I can't stop thinking about it when I look at these masks. It's so silly. It goes something like this. If you think your pair of pants can stop a fart, then you think a mask can stop a virus. And I know that's really gross and childish, but there is some truth to it. A virus is so tiny, it passes between the fibers of a face mask, and of course most face masks are open to the side and top and bottom. It's not stopping anything. And if it did stop things, well then how come I have to wear one if you've got one on? Yeah, if you can smell the fire from someone wearing jeans, John, do you think a mask is going to stop a virus? I mean, that's gross. But I did think about that for a minute, and I thought that's exactly the same thing. I'm sorry, that's gross. Patriot Girl, $10. God bless patriots from all over the world. Think for yourself and keep God close at this time in history. Hugs from California, USA. Thank you for that. Max Vision Remote View Class, $5. COVID-19 could be human chromosome 8. The implications are dire. I haven't heard that before. I'm not familiar with that. Carl RIC, $5. In my country, Argentina, big demonstration against government and the longest quarantine in the world. I'm very sorry to hear that. P1980, $20. The WHO says we can never go back to normal due to climate change. Oh, they're loving it. They're absolutely loving the UN. This is the UN's finest hour. Susanna Simpson, $5. Can stores refuse to enforce a mandatory mask bylaw? I suppose they could, and the question is what would happen to them. They may be fined, and then do they fight that in court? Are they shut down in the meantime? Do they win in court? Do the local enforcement officers prosecute? I think politicians we're seeing the worst of them, and I think they're becoming more and more authoritarian as the actual threat of the virus becomes more and more modest. Ray W. Only 6 kids died with COVID in UK. All had cancer or cystic fibrosis. I wonder how many kids died by getting the living daylights scared out of them. Ray, I don't even know if any kids have died in the United Kingdom. I saw a statistic that none had. unless you're doing that counting thing that authorities do. Oh, he had a heart attack, but he had the virus in him. Oh, he got hit by a car, but he had the virus in him. Listen, I don't dispute your stats, I just want to verify them. I would be surprised if even 6 kids died from it. Flat Earther, $2.79, like the containment camps tip from the Real News. Fraser McBurney, $12. Saturday, Patriots hung signs from 25 overpasses in Ottawa at 4:15 a.m. At 4:20 a.m., the police tore them down and confiscated them. Big Brother is watching. If you want to communicate, use pen and paper. Yeah, holy cow. I've never seen police respond so quickly to a shooting, but boy, they were all over those overpasses, weren't they? Story time, $5. Adolf was against communism. Communism is Zionism. I think you're mixing up a bunch of things there, mate. That's just not even true. Zionism is rooted in Mount Zion, which is in the Bible, and it said there's a Jewish homeland in the biblical state of Israel. Communism is a economic system of no property and a dictatorship of the proletariat. Adolf Hitler himself was an authoritarian. And if you look at the root of Nazi National Socialism, there was a lot of corporatist and communalist economics there too. I think you're stretching there, mate. And I think you're trying to conflate communism with Judaism. I'm a Jew and I'm an anti-communist, obviously. Best Buds, $5. To the people who wear masks in the car by themselves or outside walking alone, it's the same thing as being alone in bed wearing a condom. I can't dispute that. I think I told you I was in the middle of a lake a month ago. Lake Louise, as it so happened, beautiful lake. In the middle of a lake, on a canoe. And I saw another canoe maybe 100 feet away, and the gal was wearing a mask. And I thought, do you think a virus like a giant Loch Ness monster is going to jump out of Lake Louise and nibble on you? And even if it did, do you think your mask is going to... I just saw that, and I thought, you're missing the point of being out here in Lake Louise, I thought. Kane Enmark, $2. Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero? I think so. The facts certainly have come out on that. It looks like he defended himself against a would-be murderer who had a gun in his hand. And I think he shot the Antifa murderer like 1 or 2 seconds before he himself would have been shot. We'll find out when it goes to trial. That's for sure. Peter Quinter, $5. Thank you very much for that. All right, well, I think I've more or less caught up. Oh, one just came in. Let me just take a look at that. Thank you for your patience. I let him go. Oh, here we go. C182 OPR, $5. Face masks are the new fascist armband. I wouldn't go that far, because the fascist armband is something you wear sort of with pride and you broadcast to others. A mask, by most people, is a sign of submissiveness, like a muzzle. Kurt, 123, $20. Hi, Ezra. What is your opinion on the damage the Trudeaus and Obamas have done to North America? How did they con so many people? Well, Obama was a charmer, and he had the entire media party at his disposal. And John McCain was a weak candidate, and Mitt Romney was an even weaker candidate. It took a rough and tough candidate like Donald Trump to beat back both the Democratic Party and the media party, which is even stronger. And you can see the campaign we're in right now just as bruising, and the media completely in the tank. Just some incredible tweets. You know, there's a Chris Cillizza tweet from the weekend. Chris Cillizza, CNN. I'm not going to paraphrase it. I'll wait till we find it. If you just, his tweet went viral, but for all the wrong reasons. You know that phrase ratioed, where you put up a tweet and you expect a certain number of comments and retweets, but instead everyone just replies and mocks you in in a huge ratio. That's where that phrase comes from. So he was arguing. It's funny. He was saying, no. Trump's efforts to label what is happening in major cities as riots, in quotes, speaks at least somewhat to his desperation, politically speaking, in the moment. And look at that photo. That's the photo that he tweeted. This is Chris Cillizza, CNN. Trump's efforts to label what is happening in major cities as riots speaks to his desperation. Those are riot police in riot gear, and that looks like some sort of a military vehicle even, in front of a burning store. This is some sort of performance art or something? I don't know. But this is like saying, don't believe your lying eyes. No, that's a mostly peaceful fire. It's mostly peaceful. And those are mostly peaceful riot police. Oh my God. Yeah, just crazy. And with Trudeau, well, the media love him even more. And of course, Jagmeet Singh will never call an election, so he's got a de facto majority. How are we doing for time? It's 12. Oh my God, it's 12:46. We're almost done. What do we spend all the time on? I guess we showed that 8-minute clip from Germany. Lots of super chats. Okay, let me just a couple more. Flat Earther 279, New Zealand PM is a dude in a dress. Listen, I hear that criticism against Jacinda Ardern and Theresa Tam, and I'm not the handsomest of men myself, so I usually stay away from arguments about physical appearance unless the other party has made physical appearance legitimized it as an issue in a debate. I think that Jacinda Ardern, can you get the clip of her saying, I don't know if you could find it quickly. She said, you have to stay in quarantine forever. Do you know that one? I think we used it once. I think there's much worse things you can say about Jacinda Ardern as a tyrant. She's the one who canceled New Zealand's elections. I think they had 6 people in the hospital in the whole country. And she just canceled them because of the pandemic. Do you see what I mean about seizing power? Oops. She's terrible. While Justin looks that up. Oh, here we go.
Wanted to, I've got a number of questions about people refuse, what do we do if someone refuses to be tested? Well, they can't now. If someone refuses in our facilities to be tested, they have to keep staying. So they won't be able to leave after 14 days. They have to stay on for another 14 days. So it's a pretty good incentive. You either get your tests done and make sure you're cleared, or we will keep you in a facility longer. So I think most people.
So did you hear that? Basically, we're going to put you in a facility and we're going to keep you in there forever until you take our medical tests. And the sort of the chuckle as she said that. It's not often that you hear a leftist talk about a life sentence in jail with such glee and such a chuckle. But welcome to the authoritarian nature of the left. Justin, I just sent you a story from the South China Morning Post, which is a Hong Kong-based English language newspaper. I think it's a little bit too pro-Beijing for my taste, but they still do some honest journalism. This story is called Fraud Probes into New Zealand's Main Parties Raise Questions Over Chinese Money and Influence. And just scroll down to the photo there. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, and pictured with Zhang Yi-kun, who is facing fraud charges over donations to a rival party. New Zealand's 2 main political parties have been embroiled in fraud allegations over their handling of donations with possible links to China. Oh, just possible, eh? Yeah, I think it's more than possible. The Serious Fraud Office is involved. Has not given any details of the investigation to Labor, but the party's president said two of the businessmen charged in the case, brothers Zheng Shijia and Zheng Hengjia, had previously donated to the Labor Party. Labor said the pair's donations fell below the $15,000 threshold for declaring it. Ahead of the election that year, the party raised $60,000 from an auction at the Chaoshan General Association. So basically, they're all on the take from China. Let me just sum up this lengthy article. But it's not just the communist Jacinda Ardern. I say that because she really was the youth chairman of the Socialist International. She really was. But she's obviously in love with communist China. Can you Google Jacinda Ardern, Socialist International? I want to prove to people that she really is a communist. Doesn't believe in free speech, doesn't believe in personal liberty, shuts down the whole country because of 6 people in the hospital, sets up indefinite internment camps if you don't bend the knee to her jabbing you with needles. And she comes by all this honestly. She was with the Young Pioneers, or whatever it was called. What was her? There we go. Jacinda was president of the International Union of Socialist Youth. After visiting the USA, Jacinda traveled to England, where she worked for the British Prime Minister Tony Blair before being chosen as the president of the International Union of Socialist Youth. The union's focus was human rights and equal opportunities for the world's children. Yeah, I don't think so, mate. What is this, Heavy.com or something? As president, Jacinda got to travel the world even more, with meetings in China, Lebanon, and Jordan. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about her travels to China. Can you scroll up? Where is this from? Is this from Heavy.com? Oh, it's just from Penguin. Oh, 5 things. So it's just some propaganda. She's great. She was the head of the International Socialists, and she went as a young person to study in China. Yeah, that's not a good thing, mate. That's not a good thing. 12:52. Any more super chats? Let me just check here. Mike Lefebvre, $5. Hi, Ezra. I sent you an email I received from my son's school. They asked if parents can drop their kids a block or 2 away from school. He's 10. I saw your email. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to reply. Mike Lefebvre, $5. They said this to help minimize the dangers of COVID. I thought the dangers were gone if they were back at school. They're just making it up. There's no science behind any of this. Jimmy James, $10. What are the rules to cross the U.S.-Canadian border? Crossing the U.S. border, I don't think there are restrictions other than the normal passport restrictions, and if you are manifesting symptoms that keep you out. I don't believe there's a quarantine going down there. Coming back, however, unless you meet a certain test for essential business, you have a 14-day quarantine upon your return. It's really Justin Trudeau choosing not to allow cross-border travel with the United States. I think he's doing it because he's really part of the Democrat campaign against Donald Trump. He wants to do whatever he can to denormalize the United States economically. I mean, not that Canada is a big deal, but I was in Niagara Falls over the weekend. I really enjoyed that little city. And the border, I mean, that town really relies on American visitors. It's right across the river from Niagara Falls, New York. And it would be just doing great these days because the Canadian dollar is so low and the Americans would come over and spend money. But I'm not going to say it's a ghost town because there was other Canadians there. But Trudeau is sacrificing a lot of border towns and the economy in general because he wants to harm the U.S., even if it's just 1% harm. He would rather harm Trump in the run-up to the presidential election in 2.5 months than help Canadians. I truly believe that. Trudeau didn't even go down for a signing ceremony for the USMCA renegotiated NAFTA. The president of Mexico came up, Trump was there. Trudeau refused to go because he didn't want to get Trump the photo op. That's how partisan Trudeau is. Martin Sable, $10. Thank you. Martin Sable, another $5. Do you think there will be World War III? I think we had World War III. It was called the Cold War. The entire world was grappling with it, but it was not a hot war. I think we're probably in World War IV now, and there's some shooting in World War IV. I mean, I guess you could call World War IV the war on terror. What do you call the war with China? Xi Jinping calls it a war. He says it's a war by other means, diplomatic, economic, cyber war, industrial espionage, undermining universities. Xi Jinping believes and says that China is in a war with the West. We may not want to hear that, but I think it's pretty easy to prove it's true. Flat Earther 279, Obama's husband is Michael. He said so himself. I think you're making another ad hominem physical appearances, Barb, at Obama. And my general response to that, I would have two. The first is, there is something remarkable about the fact that Melania Trump, former supermodel, gorgeous then, gorgeous now, has never been on the cover of a mainstream American women's magazine. Never. Not one. Whereas Michelle Obama, who is a more plain-looking woman, has been on every single one of them. That can only be explained away through bias. Melania Trump is completely inoffensive. She says nothing of a partisan nature. She's not as divisive as Michelle Obama with her, crusade against yummy school meals. Like Michelle Obama had this big war on normal food in schools, wanted everyone to eat yams or whatever. Melania is completely inoffensive, model-like good looks, but she's never been on a magazine cover because that's the media for you. That's a fact. But my second and larger point is that there's enough things to criticize Obama for, don't you think? This is what I say to people who are interested in conspiracy theories. I say there's enough conspiracy facts right out there. So there's enough horrible, terrible, crazy things just right out there to go after. We don't need to cook things up. Jack Krauser, $7. Can you get Maxime Bernier and Aaron O'Toole to meet and come up with some kind of deal? We can't afford to split the vote. That's not going to happen. In fact, I did ask something to that effect to Maxime Bernier when I saw him a few months ago. And did you see our interview with that Drea Humphrey did? I thought that was a good one. We interviewed Maxime Bernier just the other day. Lisa Proust, $2. No border issues if you walk through Roxham Road. Isn't that the truth? In fact, we had a story the other day about how Trudeau is stationing nurses 24/7 at the border for the free use of anyone just walking up from the United States for any reason or no reason. Come get free health care right there at Roxham Road. The border's open there, that's for sure. Another super chat. Kurt 123, $5. If only these government officials could miss a few paychecks, pandemic would be over in 4 hours. Well, that's such a key point. All the institutions, all the deciders, all the people, the ruling class really, who love the pandemic, they haven't missed a paycheck. They haven't missed a meal. In fact, if anything, they've had a lot of fun. They get to work from home now, if they have to work at all. I mean, just for months, how many hundreds of thousands of bureaucrats just didn't have to show up for work? Oh, they got paid every paycheck. Whereas working class people, to me the most obvious examples are in the service industries. Waiters, waitresses, bartenders, retail clerks. And yeah, there was some government pogey. But first of all, that's unsustainable. And second of all, people want to work for a living. People work for the money, but they work for the sense of mission and purpose. I think if you said to some people, I'll pay you the same amount of money, but you have to sit at home all day. Some people like Justin Trudeau, that lazy ass, would sit at home all day, smoke pot, and watch Netflix. He's done that for 6 months. He's the only world leader who's done that. And not a question about it from the media party. But I think a lot of people would say, no, I actually like work. I like socializing with people. I like the fact that I have to get up and have a shower and shave and put on a clean uniform and go and talk to other people and the interaction. And I got some work friends, and it's interesting and see the world and hear. I think we're social beings, and this pandemic has destroyed that, and these masks are destroying that. I think the elites have enjoyed it. They have cottages, country homes, whatever, and they didn't miss a pay. If you would have had judges missing paychecks, this lockdown would have been over in the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Remember that? 2 weeks to slow the spread. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. You cut off judges' pay. You cut off MPs' pay. You'd have been back to work in 2 weeks. In fact, the opposite happened. In April, I believe, Parliament gave itself a raise. Parliament gave itself a raise in the middle of this. Not a lot of media coverage of that either, was there? Well, my friends, it's 1 o'clock on the dot. Let me just read the last super chats. Damon the Dam, it's great to hear from you again. Thank you, $10. China had UN ambitions right after World War II and was shunned by major superpowers as a result, fostering more resentment from China. How do you turn their attitude around? Well, that's part of it, but of course China has been in the UN since Jimmy Carter's time. So that's more than 40 years. A whole new generation has arisen, and whereas there was a liberalization under Deng Xiaoping, I think there is a militarization and a ethnic nationalism under Xi Jinping, an expansionism, and like I say, a wartime footing. So I'm not going to blame that on the West. I think that communism has been replaced by crony capitalism and a surveillance state. And I think that Xi Jinping really is the enemy he tells us he is, not the Chinese people. The trick is, can you liberate the Chinese people without causing a war or even a civil war? It really was a remarkable thing that the Cold War, World War III as some people called it, with the Soviet Union was ended without a shot. Like, think about how miraculous that was. Flat Earther 279, Obama called Michelle Michael so many times. Well, I don't know if that's true. Interesting day, lots to do. It's 1:02 p.m. Eastern Time. Pardon me? We got, that's right. Is this the one I sent you? All right. Normally, Justin curates, selects, handpicks, and chooses all of those things, the dog video. But I just saw this dog video on Old Row Pups. And I thought, what do you think of this, Justin? And he said it met the test. So this is a short one. It's just a little short one. It's just a dog video, because I think dog videos make us feel just a few percentage points better. So let me say goodbye to you now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the super chats. And here's a dog video that I personally chose.